Check this out. The coronavirus, which supposedly originated from China, has rampaged throughout the world and caused reportedly more than 80,000 deaths, infecting at least 1.4 million people. The actual number of deaths and infections is unknown due to the fact that underreporting of cases from mainland China. However, when we take an in-depth look at the progression of this pandemic from January to now, or in April, allegedly from Huanan seafood market, the scandals of Wuhan Institute of Virology, and even from the long-running experiments of viruses to the military takeovers, suspicious activities arise from every corner. This information leads us on a journey of discovery to bring the truth behind the matter to light. On the Good Intentions Show this week, we will have Sacha Stone, a published author and social activist. Through vigorous investigations and piecing together of hidden information, he will unearth a complete understanding of the situation surrounding the rise of this pandemic. Suspicions uncovered from official reports and publicly available data also sprouted more questions like how the 5G role is affecting with the coronavirus. What is in store for humanity in the coming months and years? How about the difference between spiritual freedom and constitutional rights? You will hear critical information at this critical time that you do not hear on the mainstream media and only on the UI Media Network. So join us and be informed.
Welcome to the Good Intentions Show, coming to you live on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions one intention at a time. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Yes, this is the Good Intentions Show, where you will meet people who live life intentionally and hear about things they're not telling you in the mainstream media. And now, here's the truth seeker, the snake charmer, a legend in his own mind, broadcasting live all over the universe, your host, Mr. Tim Ray.
This is a show you're going to want to start sharing right now. All listeners on WDJY FM radio, start dialing in, get the information out, as well as all our information that you're hearing on our app, uimediaapp.com. This is going to be an incredible show. We're going to be talking about what is going on in our lives right now as we're in lockdown. What is the possible agenda could be going on other than what we hear on the news, mainstream media every day? Is there something else going on? And this is something that you're going to hear not only from my perspective, but also from the one and only Sacha Stone. And he is actually the founder of ITNJ, which is a tribunal, that natural justice, which is holding people accountable for their actions against humanity. Let's just say crimes against humanity. So we're going to be discussing that in depth and much more of what you can do, not only prepare yourself for this lockdown and what's coming, but what is in store for humanity. So guys, start sharing this right now. Get it out there. Get as many people out to listen to this information before things change, because censorship is coming down hard on many things, not only on the internet, of course, on mainstream media and propaganda being told to everybody every day. However, on the UI Media Network, we do not go there. We are uncensored, and that's something that you guys not only appreciate, we all appreciate, because this is how we truly get our information out there, uncensored, without having the essence of big government. Some people, perhaps even other energies out there trying to suppress this information. So share this now, guys. Without further ado, let me bring in a former rock and roll musician and artist, as well as a founder of these great organizations and just an all-around incredible soul, Sacha Stone. Sacha, welcome to the show.
Greetings, Tim, from Bali, Indonesia.
Bali, Indonesia. God, you got to love that. How we can communicate with people all around the world at any given time. And you know what? Thank you, technology, for this alone. Or I would probably prefer to telepathy, but hey, I'll take this in the midst of, right? So let me jump right into it, Sacha, real quick here, and get a question out, because this is, I think, something that is just I want to know personally about you in the sense, but I think most everyone wants to know, okay, this is not smelling right. The litmus test of smell test of what's going on and the overreaction to this type of, severe flu, if that's the case, locking down the world seems well too organized. everywhere around the world happening at the same time, everyone making the same decisions. It seems very, very suspicious, at least at the minimum. But when did you realize, what was the beginning part you believe that the coronavirus was was really set up to be a plandemic or a scandemic, as I mentioned earlier? What was the telltale signs you experienced that you woke up to, like, whoa, this is it?
Well, that's pretty simple. The telltale signs for me began many years ago when it was eyes wide shut, and this kind of information was actually put out into the public domain by elements of the more illumined echelon, should we say, who were required, in point of fact, to make public notice of these things. Patents were taken out, have been taken out. Bioweapons have been engineered for many years. A rather unhealthy eugenics program has been in situation for 3/4 of a century. For people like me, pundits, activists, researchers, the signs were clear long before this pantomime unfolded.
Mm. Well, okay, and then in the recent times, let's say from January to now, when did you? Because like yourself, like myself, and many others who have been hip to this for, I've been watching this for 30 years now. Watching things build up in the right moments and the right decisions and legislation being passed, playing up for that crisis mode. When you demoralize a world and then you destabilize a world, you have to have that crisis to be able to move to what they call the normalization or the new agenda, whatever that may be. And it's probably not going to be a very happy agenda with the power brokers in charge. But what was this last couple of months really wake up like, wow, guys, this could be the big crisis here. This could be the moment, not a dry run.
Oh, again, by having a very well-trained eye to understand how media headlines and straplines are syndicated. So from being an outbreak in Wuhan province in China, which is a relatively innocuous scenario, to all of a sudden making front page on CNN straplines and BBC News and so on. It's pretty obvious at that moment that the dominoes have begun. It's orchestrated pandemonium beginning through the Associated Press and the Reuters labyrinthine networks. And all of those protocols have been, in a sense, the simulation games have been run multiple times. Those protocols are well oiled. Once it begins, it's pretty unstoppable, which is how you get to collapse the economies of 195 countries within 21 days.
To me, I am just like, wow, this is it, guys. This is the crisis they've been waiting for. And I didn't see it coming through a pandemic. I thought it was going to be more of a kind of a straight out war. But, coming from a perspective of looking at how you could manage and destroy a world economy within 3 weeks, probably the first week, but within 3 weeks is pretty fascinating. I mean, just to be able to be an outside observer watching it occur, unfold like dominoes, literally like dominoes, is a pretty amazing experience to be alive and watching this happen today. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree entirely. But again, I've been lecturing on the Jesuit oath for many years, and I've been reading it aloud as a proclamation. It's a public notice that was made a long time ago. And if anyone cares to go back to that, it's a very good starting point to understand where the premise of these kinds of exercises began.
Well, because I agree with you, and I think that's wonderful. But in majority of the people, I'd say a high majority of the people are just they're experiencing this for the first time. They're smelling something's wrong, but they have no history with your experience with what's going on with the as the dominoes fell over the last so many decades of positioning themselves. So there's a couple of camps here, and I want you to maybe share your belief on the camp here. One, it's the majority of the people have no idea what's going on. They all think it's just this coronavirus temporary thing that we're going to be going through, and we're going to go back to normal again in the next couple of weeks as they extend each the curve's not here yet. It was supposed to be in March. No, now it's supposed to be in April. No, now it's supposed to be in May. And eventually people will get understanding that, okay, there's some game going on here, right? But majority won't. But there's also another camp that I'm not sure if you're into, is that this is all part of a process. It's a positive thing. For example, where Donald Trump, is actually breaking down these negative sources and systems, and this is all part of a program of going forward to actually help humanity unleash gave their own sovereignty back to them, as well as like the Q movements, things like that. But what camp are you in right now?
I'm in the camp of pure witness, and without wanting to sound facetious, we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the discussion, you and I in private, that we're dealing with a 5D chess game, more or less. And that is absolutely the case. And a 5D chess game means that it is not binary. It means that it is not this or that, black or white. There are multiple agendas which are perfectly interfolded or interwoven here to create a hybrid holographic reality. And the fact of the matter is, to anyone who has a trained eye to observe these kinds of holographic memes, you've got a diabolical Sabbatean agenda, which is the eugenics, global depopulation, New World Order instigation tactic. That's begun. That's been set up for a long time. We've done simulations with HIV, AIDS, with SARS, with bovine flu, avian flu, duck flu, pigeon flu, all of this nonsense. These were setups for this very scenario. But what you also have to factor is that there is a counter coup taking place within an orchestrated pandemonium, without any question of doubt in my mind. And that is where you've got the white hats, black hats scenario. It sounds very reductive, and it can even sound infantile. I will hazard that it's 100% true, and I'm certain in my own mind of that. And that bodes incredibly well for humanity, to answer the question.
Well, beautifully stated. And I think the more every day goes by, the more people are waking up to this potential realization. Now, you recently had an emergency tribunal meeting with some really top thought leaders in the world. G. Edward Griffin, you had Del Bigtree, you had of course, yourself were there. You had even the judge was there for the justice. And it was amazing how you pulled that together and people were able to kind of like share information where we are. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But like Griffin, that's more my camp here. And I want to kind of just maybe challenge you a little bit on this as well and get your perspective. But, he's like, well, do you trust? And I think Del Bigtree asked, and we'll play the video too later on the show, guys, for folks who are not hearing this for the first time. But he asked the question, do you believe that the Trump administration or the Q movement, you think this is valid? And there are a couple of people who are like, yes, we think this is all the right moves they're making in this three-dimensional world decisions that are moving us forward to sovereignty. But as Griffin said, he doesn't think so. He thinks we're just being sold another PSYOP for us to be able to go along and give more time for people, for the NWO to maneuver themselves to really restrict us of our sovereignty.
Well, that's Ed's perspective, and I love Ed as a very dear friend, and I respect the man enormously in the same way that I love David Icke. I've known David for some years, and I respect and love that man beyond measure. But I foundationally disagree with both David Icke and G. Edward Griffin's prognostication. My own prognostication is more spiritualized in the sense that I see what I see through these eyes in this world for almost half a century. And what I see is based on a state of witness, which is anchored in me being a realized human being, more or less. And that I recognize that we, the collective human family, are entirely accountable for the hologram that presents itself on the radar screen of life. And that all of the archetypal apocalyptic stuff that we are seeing come at us is an extension of the collective unconsciousness manifesting in the field in diametric proportion to the degree to which we have remained an unconscious civilization. We've reached a point where that's about to shift, and this should be a reason for elation and joy. We just mustn't identify too much with what we believe this reality to be offering us. It's only a chimera. It's moving across the field. It's not real. I know this to be so because I know that we foundationally control the projection, and we've already begun to upbeat that pulse of humankind. It's begun. I can hear the chorus. I can feel the vibral light lifting everything. And I'm not a spiritual new age guy, but this for me is the real metric of who you and I are, Tim. We're living Homo sapiens sapiens, sons and daughters of God. And we're here in the temporal realm, and we are the ones manifesting the reality. Let's own that. Let's assimilate it. Let's transmute it. Let's transcend it. And then let's embody and manifest what what we want in this world, which is to anchor patterns of perfection.
Okay,
Surely.
I think it's brilliant. And now let me make sure I fully understand the concept in reference to. So you're saying is the people like the Trumps, the people like that are almost unconsciously, not even aware what they're doing, are moving us into this level of freedom. Like as we say, anything negative occurs. So
Yes.
so as Trump signs the 5G bill in the first part of the year, he's still unknowingly hit these decisions that are going to cause a domino effect that's going to move things forward, or what?
No,
Okay.
Donald Trump is no fool. Donald Trump is well aware of 5G and the threat of 5G, the infrastructure, the rollout. In my view, and I've been conjecturing this for a year since I released the film 5G Apocalypse, the extinction event. And in that film, I set the stage for what's happening this year, almost exactly. I invite people to go to YouTube and see it. I don't charge money for the films, but everything we laid out there is more or less happening on cue. And I was asked by multiple journalists after releasing that film, why are you still supporting and endorsing the Trump administration? And I said, because in respect of rolling out 5G, he's the leader of the free world. He has no choice but to support and endorse the 10, 12, $15 trillion rollout of that infrastructure. What he's done, in my view, is championed the private sector, putting the investment into the infrastructure, not the federal government. I think that's very smart. All the players in that 5G agenda are now showing their hands. They're the stakeholders. They've exposed themselves. Trump, I said a year ago, would enact Pentagon protocols and override the weaponized frequencies at the 11th hour. And boom, what just happened 3-4 weeks ago? He released the Telecommunications Safety Security Act. That's setting the stage for declaring that 5G is weaponized, has got all sorts of globalist supranational interests behind it, and exactly what he's done to the World Health Organization and aimed the gun sights at Bill Gates yesterday with the Surgeon General. A classic case in point. I said that the night before Trump did it because I thought somebody should go out there and make that statement that if the World Health Organization is now put firmly into Trump's sights, that will prove that he's setting the game up. He's brilliant at he and his handlers are brilliant at pulling the right devils out from the basement, getting them behind seals of office when the shit show begins. And I think that's great chess play.
Well, listen, I truly want to believe you because it would make me take a level of my anxiety down a couple of notches, especially when we have to fall back on ourselves if we're really by ourselves, our own growth. However, talking to people like the David Wilcox out there, and I've come to understand that the U.S. presidents from Trump down have been at least seven levels of any authority throughout of the real power brokers in this world. And we often give them so much more credit that each president will bring us to the next level. Now, with that said, what evidence for you, Sacha, is for you to be able to say, okay, I told you this was going to happen. Trump's moves, he's making these moves here. What evidence for you will be enough for you to say, okay, what I've been saying is true, or what evidence for you would be enough to say, well, hold on, I was wrong. Apparently, they're playing the psyop, good cop, bad cop routine, and maybe we don't need to put our trust in them.
The point at which Donald Trump, like the Pope in Rome, turns into a hologram in broad daylight.
Everybody saw that video, right? Yeah.
That's not a joke. I mean, the moment that Donald Trump shapeshifts into a 11-foot tall Draco reptilian, that's the day I will go, okay, guys, I got it wrong. But let me be clear.
Okay.
I'm following what I refer to as the Atman, which is the human gut instinct, the psionic intelligence, the consciousness that is connected to the earth plane and the dielectric universe. I am the Christed light is the determiner of pure truth. And it is my contention that both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are classic archetypes of guys who are very colorful characters in the past. You could paint them all sorts of ways. But I do believe that either which way the Christed light is moving through them and bringing about that enormous shift that is clearly needful at that echelon of international leadership. Why? Because foundationally, they're good humans.
Listen, I love that vision, and I'll hold that with you, okay? Now, let's move to 5G for a second here, Sacha, because I think this is the ultimate plan, and maybe you could share a little bit of your understanding of the 5G situation. What is the ultimate goal of these AI enthusiasts and these power brokers with 5G? Maybe paint the picture for people hearing it for the first time. Why really is this the true agenda and not so much the coronavirus crisis scandemic?
Well, it's a very loaded question, and to be frank, Tim, I could speak to it for about 3 hours and do a PowerPoint. But I'll try and break that down to 3 minutes or less.
Sure.
What you need to do is you need to have an understanding of how, since the time of Cecil John Rhodes, the League of Nations, which then became the United Nations, and then locked and loaded a globalist protocol where 200 odd countries of the world were all forced into or coerced, cajoled into ratifying a United Nations compact or treaty. That treaty is a centralized command in order to roll out draconian New World Order enterprise. That's what you're seeing happen right now. To go quickly to 5G, and 5G has surfed on that. But the point is this: 5G is a catalyzing trigger, okay, for what is already happening inside the human body. We have had 75 plus years of being fluoridated. Our global water supply has had fluoride pumped into it. That was the United Nations Central Command Protocol. Get all municipal water supplies fluoridated all around the world. Pump fluoride into toothpaste and into every product you can put it into by stealth. Fluoride is a goddamn poison. That is known to any chemist. A goddamn poison. Does nothing for your teeth. Depletes the calcium and makes you available to become cancerous. I mean, cancer is largely attributable to fluoride.
Yeah,
then
sodium fluoride,
right. Then they pump glyphosates into the the world food supply. And this is courtesy of Monsanto, agrochemical and agricultural industries working in harmony with the chemical industries. And we've got poisoned food, water, and air, geoengineering, chemtrailing, pumping billions or millions of tons of dustified particles, particulates, aluminum, barium, strontium, chemical poisons. Why? Decades of this by stealth. Everyone's seen it. Skies turning to rainbows. So we've got aluminum in the human body raining down, impregnating us. Glyphosates locking inside with the aluminum. Those two together create 6 different chemical compound reactions. They move their way toward the pineal gland. The pineal gland has already been calcified by fluoride over 75 years. Okay? You've now got a ticking time bomb. Aluminum, glyphosate, and fluoride and the pineal. Pineal is the gateway to your spirit, to your consciousness, to your capacity to think. Okay? If you want to be a human and not an android, you need a pineal that's functioning without a calcified deposit around it. So what's happened by stealth, and these Babylonian internationalist corporate hegemonialists know exactly what they've been doing. They've been setting the stage for the artificialization of humanity. 5G is the catalyst. That is the trigger, the frequency bandwidth that triggers the bomb in every human being and depletes our capacity to think, to function, to do anything other than either be culled, harvested at random, or be forced into some utility. So that's more or less the dystopian apocalyptic scenario, which would be a great science fiction novel, except for the fact that it's absolutely real.
Beautifully stated. And I'd laugh just because of the fact that it's unfolding as we speak, as everybody's locked into their rooms. Their towers are going up. Of course, that's essential work needs to be done. So here it is. But there's one piece that won't work, I believe, without this one aspect, which we'll talk about now, and their mode of how they're going to get to into individual humans. But these 5G towers that are going up are communicating directly with the satellites and the thousands of satellites Musk and everybody else are putting up there, and creating this overall web, this electromagnetic frequency web over the Earth, literally over the Earth, via the satellites to the individual towers outside of our homes. But there's one fundamental piece, part of this ultimate plan, that needs to be put into place, in my opinion, and it's not the injection of the COVID virus vaccine, although I think that will be the beard for this process to go through. Wouldn't each human, to fully engage them in the 5G Internet of Things experience, and to be able to manipulate and control the brain frequencies, the frequencies within the body, where you could be happy and joy, being enslaved, doing something you would never do, or you could be suicidal or depressed because of the changing of our frequencies and our brain activity because of the manipulation of this. And that is the RFID experience. Each human would have to have this encoded or put into their bloodstream to be able to now connect to the 5G system. That's the last agenda here. And if that is the last agenda, if what I'm saying is accurate, Sacha, how are they going to do this?
Well, how they're going to do it is by rolling out exactly the global infrastructure that they've begun rolling out. One ought to look at the Elon Musks of this world and the Zuckerbergers and the Googles and Schmoogles and Facebooks. These are the multinational, innocuous, young, funky, Burning Man type characters or icons that have been chosen as front persons for this Sabbatean collectivist agenda. And they're functioning rather well, those characters. I'd certainly like to have a conversation with each one of them. But the point is, it's already been weaponized. It's set. The stage is set. I've been conducting with the International Tribunal's Judicial Commission of Inquiry into human trafficking and child sex abuse that we launched at Westminster 2 years ago. Subsequent to that inquiry, we've met with countless survivors, victims, detectives, researchers, and people from all walks of life, largely military, it must say, military veterans who themselves were co-opted into military programs unbeknownst to themselves, voice-to-skull technology, RFID chipping, autonomous responses. All of this disgusting stuff has been already experimented on by people who signed a compact with the devil when they recruited themselves into military machinery. So we know this. This is all out. Yes, they're intending through an RFID chipping mechanism, and it's nanochip. I mean, you're talking about something so small you can scarcely see it. It'll be an innocuous little addendum to the vaccination that Mr. Bill Gates, the sociopath extraordinaire, is intending to roll out planet-wide, getting on international syndicated news networks and suggesting that we might never go back to being normal at all, not until we get his vaccine. Well, right there is probably the biggest war crime in the history of humankind in Technicolor. I look forward to seeing that be eviscerated by the Trump administration, by Putin and others. Almost certainly that's now going to happen after that godly man, the Surgeon General of the United States, Jerome Adams, took the stage yesterday. Things are going to change very quickly, I believe, for those icons. But you're right, Tim, to speak in these terms about the fact that humanity appears to have been set up systemically in order to become artificialized. There are different elements to this holographic story which are not attractive. People do not like this, and a lot of good Christians tend to look away. When you get into the true Sabbatean, Lurian, Kabbalistic logic, the Luciferian blood-drinking element to all of this, which is connected to the culling of humanity, orchestrated culling. Look at how battles are fought and won in the Gulf and all around the world. They are largely connected to Babylonian priesthoods who are orchestrating the mobilization of those young men with rusty guns, whether it's in Vietnam or in Iraq. And 200,000 kids with rusty guns will get carpet bombed by George Bush Sr. back in the day on their retreat from Kuwait. That was a Babylonian massacre. Look at the sun, moon, and stars on that day. This is occultism writ very, very large. Clinton was very good at doing this as well, talking about Hillary Clinton, of course. But all of the administrations between JFK up to Donald Trump have essentially, and you might forgive the peanut farmer along the way, but in the main, you are looking at a Sabbatean blood cult that has infiltrated Washington, D.C., subsequent to blowing the heads out of that godly man, JFK.
Well, listen, I'm not disagreeing. I think there definitely is a spiritual, if you want to say, battle going on that much deeper than the surface explains, at least through the mainstream media. And this Luciferian world, if true, which I don't disagree, that there is a satanic Luciferian power brokers in key positions all over the world. And perhaps we'll go there too after our break. We'll go there, talk about some solutions of how we make decisions in a 3D world, how do we make decisions in a 3D illusion in a 5D world that we're in now, which we'll talk about here soon. But with reference to the Luciferian agenda, we'll pick that up past this break and take it to the next level of if the ultimate game is to control humanity, reduce humanity, and to control humanity through these manipulation of frequencies, the AI 5G program is one of the perfect ways you can actually manipulate and enslave people more so than ever before. And if it's happening now, as you said earlier, or it's going to be later on, the attempt for people to get the forced mandatory vaccinations, if that actually is allowed to roll out, or if it does roll out, neither if Trump or Putin doesn't stop, whatever may happen, if it does, then at that point we could talk about potential scenarios, what we need to do to protect ourselves, because if the ultimate goal is not to get a vaccine for a virus that can mutate to where more vaccines are coming, best case scenario, but is to literally enslave mankind and womankind through manipulation of frequencies, then I think we need to be preparing ourselves for what we need to be doing in the future. And we'll talk about some solutions in the 3D world that we could do. Guys, we're talking to Sacha Stone. He's the founder of ITNJ, which we're going to be discussing when we get back right past this break and getting into justice for these crimes against humanity that's happening right in front of our eyes at this moment. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in 1 minute.
The time to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our five senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale. Manipulation, manpower, or others simply controlling your mentality. The commentary and guests will shift our paradigm and defy the status quo.
In 1979, the so-called father of Israeli intelligence, a guy called Issa Harel, told an American journalist that there was going to be an Islamic attack on New York's biggest building.
Bill Gates, he is publicly saying we should consider microchipping all of humanity so we can track their vaccination status.
What you see in movies like The Avengers, that's actually true.
What will you believe? Frequency Wars challenges perception to take back your sovereignty. The power and purpose are greater than any of us, but we will test it all. Frequency Wars, the next revolution.
All right, we are back live with Sacha Stone. Not only, of course, he's a founder of multiple organizations that are just really leveling up what we need to be doing here in this world, but also he's a former rock and roll musician and artist. I don't know, like former. It's like being a Marine. Can you ever not be a Marine? Are you always going to be a rock and roll artist there, Sacha, or what?
No, I don't think so. I regard myself as a failed rock and roll musician, in as much as I really didn't play the game too well, but in terms of obedience to the industry. But I regard myself more as a shock poet. I'm happy with that moniker. Or a pagan love god, that would do as well.
Right. Well, we left off, Sacha, talking about the Luciferian agenda, the New World Order. Also, I talked about the forced RIFID injection, whatever that may look like, or when it may look like. Hopefully, not only we can prevent that, but perhaps leaders of the world, as you're suggesting, could prevent that. But becoming literally a Borg species, if that does occur, if people do sign up for it. Because right now, I polled a few people, and I asked a few folks who are perhaps not as enlightened as perhaps as yourself, and I said, well, listen, if right now we're being held hostage, if they could release us out of this self-imprisoned world in our houses, if you would you take a vaccination that would help you with the COVID-19 just to be able to get out sooner? And I'll tell you what, I almost had 100% compliance say yes, absolutely, I'd take it. So to me, that's a little bit scary of a mandate going forward. But if this Luciferian agenda, this bigger picture of creating the intention to allow ourselves to imprison ourselves. How do we hold people accountable? Because you started the Tribunal of Natural Justice, and tell us a little bit about what the purpose is for this tribunal and why you started it.
Well, I'll just start off by saying I'm just as critical of stupid people as I am of corrupt leadership. I am actually absolutely in the middle. I have no sympathy for people who are that surrendered in their own conscience, their own gut instinct, that they would put their babies up for sacrifice for goddamn vaccinations without doing the work. Pull your face out of your Facebook or Instagram. Pull your face out of the trough at Walmart and go and do some goddamn work. Seriously. And now is the time. It is shameful and shameless for people to be even considering compliance with rogue government and rogue municipal authorities when it comes to things like sticking a needle and pumping chemical toxins into your babies, for the love of God. But let's move on to your question, which is about the ITNJ. That was an international tribunal for natural justice. We set it up in 2015, launched our first Judicial Commission of Inquiry in 2018 in Westminster, London. That was into human trafficking, child sex abuse. We've had other hearings related to financial crimes at very, very high level. And we launched in June of last year the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into weaponization of the biosphere. Again, we were a little bit prescient in June of last year, thinking that this kind of bullshit pantomime was going to happen. It's not just the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into weaponization of the biosphere was into the poisoning of our air, soil, and water, pharmaceutical industries, agrochemical industries, vaccination programs, all of the geoengineering, all of that stuff compounded into the biggest threat facing people and planet, which is the parent corporation. Who else can take on the parent corporation? Let me describe what it is. The parent corporation is the hub of supranational, supracultural, supratheological, globalist banksters, okay, connected to blood cult. That David Icke has got that absolutely right. A blood cult is what it is. It feasts on war, disease, and poverty. And courtesy of the emancipation of humanity in recent years, coupled with technological innovations like the internet, we can now see these demons, these devils, in broad daylight. We know who they are. The genealogy leads us to them. History, true history, not the bullshit reductive history that's pumped in to our school curriculum subsequent to 1952, 7 years after the Second World War, when these Fabianist sons of bitches, Tavistock Institute and other criminals like the Council of Foreign Relations, the genesis of that, which was the Royal Institute for International Affairs, started to create socially engineer, and culturally engineer the narratives that became informed history. So once we've dispensed with all of the toxicity of academia, we're left with what? We're left with ourselves, sitting in a circle, having a conversation as living men and women of the living soil. That is where our power is. That is the flame. That is the thing that these Sabbateans have been so terrified of since the pre-Sumerian times, because you cannot dampen the spark of humanity. You cannot do it. The Caesars of Rome tried it. They've tried it countless times throughout history. The marauding Khazars tried it. It's never damped out. It will always come back, and it always comes back in a higher expression of evolution. Bottom line, the morphogenetic field that interconnects the emancipated spiritual energetic of all human beings is the most powerful frequency bandwidth on Earth. Okay, and that thing has the capacity to take an HIV or a SARS or any kind of threat against the human gene expression and transmute it into something else. That's called phased conjugation. It's a magic wand technology, and it proves the human body is filled, proving that process in a million ways in every human's life, constantly. So we have the capacity to override these threats. But the problem, Tim, the problem is our psychological or psycho-intellectual addiction to the horror story, to the horror narratives. We keep placing our attention onto the bad magic. These are spells set for us, which is why I'm not pessimistic, because I know a higher truth set. I hold to a higher value set, which is that truth, pure truth, and right action overrides wrong action and falsity. And so long as I anchor that, and you anchor it, and sufficient humans anchor that, that becomes a roaring inferno. This monstrosity we're seeing in front of us, mark my word, is going to evaporate as quickly as it came. But what it will do in the weeks ahead, when it evaporates, will expose the parent corporation and all of the multi-quadrillion-dollar apparatus of globalist hegemony that has been set into place globally on every high street. All of that artifice of the projected ego mind of humanity, which needed, incidentally, to come crashing to the floor. A godless, usurious, false light worshipping civilization of idolaters. Be you a good Muslim, quote unquote, or a good Christian, quote unquote, or a good Hindu or Shinto, quote unquote, we have all of us collectively permissioned our civilization to become idolaters. That's what we are, worshipping at yet another golden calf of Baal. It is a Molechite civilization, and we are the ones who must actualize within that bad dream, hold to a truer, higher dream, and manifest it.
Well, that's a lot to take in for many, but I'll tell you what, it resonates so true for me myself. And if you guys haven't shared this on Facebook, do that right now. Get this word out here because this is imperative information. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about now we are perhaps living in a 5D world, but still under the illusion of three-dimensional decisions that we make. So as you paint the picture that, you know, the true power is that we are mighty, powerful spiritual beings, disconnected from our own power and handing it over to so many others as we watch the mainstream media, as we hand over through the centuries, you know, of handing our power over because we don't realize that we are mighty, powerful human beings. So right now, your advice for humanity out there, Sacha, as we wake up that, wow, this five-dimensional world, this fearless way of living in love, this world that we've created or the world that's unfolding in front of our eyes, but yet we're still caught into the very fearful, scary, the moment right now of, my God, the New World Order is making their move, or I'm locked in my house and I don't want to get sick from a virus. This fearful way of living life. How do we start making decisions today to move from this 3D illusion to embrace this 5D world that we're all already created to begin with?
Tim, fear is a choice. Fear is a choice. If enough people are making the choice to follow their fear reflexivity, which is the surrendered or the abnegated conscience and consciousness, then that's the reality that they're going to live in. And they will probably perish in it as well. Conversely, when you go on the front foot, open the windows, breathe deeply, behold the sun and the majesty of creation, and know yourself to be the son or daughter of God, that is when you strike out in this world and begin to manifest and embody those Christed values. That is exactly what is being required of us right now. Stop quacking and squeaking and wheezing about what they're going to do to us. We have manifested them. The them is the unresolved aspect of me and you. Now, I own that much. I own that much. And I'm happy to take power from that, like jujitsu. Use the false power of that into this space and move forward into the world and take control of your own reality field. Go and challenge every goddamn technocrat and bureaucrat that gets in your face. Anyone hiding behind a badge of office, anyone hiding behind a throne or a seal of office, take issue with that creature, because that there is where the stealth issues from. That is where the invisible mastery issues from. So we should have very little respect for people in costume unless they are standing in honor. And unfortunately, far too few are. So it's up to us, mothers, fathers, brothers, mothers, sisters, to educate amongst our own number. If we've got a bad cop in the family, turn on him. Form a circle, people. You know he's rotten or she's rotten. Sit them down, lock the door, circle them as a family. Do what the great Africans do in the plains of the Serengeti and stand in a circle around the criminal in the village. And everyone tell them how much you love them. Tell them wonderful stories about them that you remember from childhood. Just surround them with love and absolve this rogue individual in your family. This is what we should be doing to reanimate community, reanimate the spirit of our own power, our own consensus. Stop being afraid of the tyranny of the despotism and the tyranny of this bureaucratic specter that doesn't even exist under its own aegis. It is all chimera. It's all smoke and mirrors. This is the emperor with no clothes, with a very small dick. Excuse my expression, but I mean it. He's behind the curtain. Tear the curtain apart. What do you see? You see the Queen of England sitting on a toilet. having a runny tummy, whatever. We're all human, too human. Start to humanize these idiot sociopathic icons. Humanize them, love them back into a manifest reality. We've just turned this reality sphere into a pantomime. And what we're getting back is theatrics, vaudeville, bad pantomime, bad makeup, bad hairdressing. And we deserve it, Tim. Now, if you want to be terrified by the sock puppet that you've actually created, then you're more stupid than even I think. What you need to do is take power and majesty from this global pandemic, from this invisible veiled threat that may or may not be lurking around the next lamppost, some little virus that we're told on CNN is waiting to come now. COVID-19 is a bioweapon. This is clear. It has been planted in various hotspots, probably in Qom, Iran, Wuhan, China, Milan, Italy, in New York, simultaneously opening. Just a small canister will do it, my friend. And yes, a bunch of people come down with a rather heinous flu-like symptoms. Corona is a well-known part of the spectrum of viruses that afflicts the human race every year for hundreds of years. So at the same time, we appear to be having 5G infrastructure activated and test-bedded in various parts of the world. We also have, don't forget, a threshold event that we are now arriving at, whereupon we have so many weaponized radiation frequencies in the atmosphere that they've reached a threshold event. And it could be that the COVID-19 bioweapons activated that capacitance in the humans. And so we see this natural detox happening, a planetary flu taking over, where we're having an excretion event at the cellular level, forcing those toxins out, which is what we normally call a virus, which is a good thing. When the virus is out of your body, it's a good thing because it's dead. We should be celebrating instead of being panicked. You can't actually catch a virus in that way. You know, you can spit in someone's mouth, they won't get it. God knows they've run countless trials doing that in the past. People have no understanding of what is real. And that, my friend, is because of weaponized mainstream media. So if you want to set your sights or set your shotgun or your cannon or your catapult on something, look at the trustees and the directors and the commissioning editors and the publishers and the CEOs, chairpersons of the global mainstream press apparatus who we now know are lying through their teeth.
Well,
so associated news networks are the biggest problem facing humanity. Until we've addressed that weaponized aspect of the dream spell machine, we will continue to fall victim because most stupid people, no disrespect, are not educated sufficiently to pull their heads out of their ass on their own.
And they have a captive audience now with everybody in their homes watching the Big Pharma tube there, and it's probably why the level of fear is at the heightened levels here. So with that being said, here back in the three-dimensional world of decisions that we can make right now, and I do believe that, and I'm sure you do, that we create or co-create our reality. So what we focus on will expand. However, there are certain decisions and courage and people being brave enough to oppose certain things. But in my experience with what's been going on over the last 30 years, a lot of these power brokers who are wanting this movement in, whatever it may be, if it's our unconscious darkest selves that are manifesting it, which could easily be, often have a plan for when people do riot. People do go out in the streets, even if they have a peaceful movement out in the streets. There's many agitators coming in to create the chaos to then bring in more force law, more emergencies. The laws that really will allow soldiers and people of that to deal with citizens more roughly. Now, are there any other solutions? And I like to hear from other solutions that we could do from if we create our reality and what we focus on will expand. So outside of challenging the status quo physically, because I think humanity will lose over and over again, are there other things that we can do collectively, as you said, to focus on what we want to expand if we co-create a reality moving forward to deal and diffuse and assist people who are in perhaps key roles who are trying to move us to another 5D world?
No, Not unless we're prepared to stop paying taxes, personal income taxes, because it all comes down to that. If you rend a coin unto Caesar, you are paying the creature that is going to eat you alive. And that's all we've seen in cycles and cycles and cycles, generations and generations of this thing called government, which most people don't even know the etymology of the word. It means govern, control, meant mind control technology. That's government, eyes wide shut. It's in the public domain. At what point do we choose to no longer be personally indentured into the blood cult of government and paying personal income taxes? Now, paying merchant taxes, yes, do it. That's right and proper. Pay business taxes, commercial taxes. All of that is fantastic. Even a standard value tax added to all things that are non-essential, absolutely appropriate in this kind of a civilizational model. I'll be the first person to pay those taxes. Personal income tax, get stuffed. Not going to happen under any circumstances. And I advise people where they can set up a trust, set up a charity, set up another fiction to play against the fiction's own fictionalized reality. Set up a church, use the ecclesiastical privilege or the trust privilege for your family. Put your assets into that trust. Pay the family members a stipend, and everything else is contained in there. Don't allow the government to get hold of that. Why? Because that's what weaponizes government against people. When that calf becomes so fatted and so many pigs are at the trough, and financing their budgets year on year, dreaming up more reasons why they should steal more from the public purse. For the love of God, go back and watch, what Walt Disney films taught us about this. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. That was a very bad analogy. You know my point.
Yeah, I got you.
We know the story.
Yeah. So with that said, is there anything that we could utilize the internet while we still have it, social media while we're still able to use it, to actually help get the message out? Like, for example, if their end game is to RFID people so they get their 5G frequency manipulation control mechanism in place, can people stand outside of their houses and on the cell phone and say, hey guys, every Sunday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to say I will not take any mandatory vaccination or chipping myself for whatever agenda?
That's not going to do it, Tim.
Okay.
Respectfully, no.
Yeah.
I don't like these innocuous street activist memes, because I've been an activist for a very long time. 21 years. I set up Humanita 21 years ago. I've been at this literally 365 days a year. Ask anyone who knows me. I don't take a day off. I never did. I live a beautiful life. But I am very focused on this mutant reality syndrome, this Stockholm syndrome that we suffer from as a species. And I've been running thousands of simulation games in my mind for many years about these things. No, these innocuous, pedestrian, activistic memes like petitions and what have you are cute, but they do not affect any change. Why not? Because the status quo has factored into the business model that they need to allow for a dissenting 3.4% of the population at any given time. And they allow us to play these little games and send petitions into the White House or the United Nations or whatever. No, stop playing into that hologram, because that entire playing field has been rigged and you are ring-fenced. Stop having a tea party in a prison cell and pretending that takes you any closer to liberty, because it does not. What you need to do is go on the front foot. You need to start striking out as a living son and daughter of God Most High, with that Christed light in your veins. You have to take this power. We must now own this power. This is the generation. This is the time. This is the mandate. This is why we were born. This is why each of us soul migrated through billions of years of evolution to get to this point, to apprehend this behemoth with love, with grace, with empathy, with high, noble expression. You need two things: pure truth and right action. That's all you need. That's your navigation. Walk out of your front door, either with or without the quarantine. I don't particularly invite lawlessness, but if you feel that you can challenge your local sheriff, you should do so. If you feel you can go and challenge your local municipal office, go and do so the minute you can. Go in and put liability notices against the local officials. Take it to the street level, but use the game against itself if you feel trapped in a city. If you can't simply fold this toxic game and move out to an agrarian community and have a life worth living somewhere beautiful. If you're trapped inside the city, the grid, the matrix, then at least take the fight to them.
Beautiful.
Move against the local official, the local health and safety official of your local borough or council, and issue them with a liability notice, and get all your neighbors to come in with that. You can write that notice, get one small attorney on side, have it notarized, issue that liability notice. What's going to happen? That badge wearer, badge holder who's hiding behind the fiction is going to call the legal department. The legal department will have to confess that a liability notice is entirely appropriate in a situation like this. If babies die in the neighborhood from 5G, or old people start having more strokes, and you can go and check out the real facts. Don't be listening to the WHO now, because they've been putting out figures about hotel deaths of COVID-19 and corona, which are complete nonsense. So you have to go and do the hard groundwork. Speak to people in the hospitals, good doctors, good nurses, and God knows there are a lot of them, good healthcare workers. They will tell you the truth of how many people are dying of corona, or how many people are being attributed to dying of corona who had 2 or 3 other morbidity factors. This is part of the criminal collusion exercise that's going on right now. My bottom line, Tim, is take the fight to the local street corner, but do it by the rules of engagement, and you can still win the game.
Wonderful. And we have a show on Awaken the Land on Thursday about the rebel with the cause, and we have local politicians coming in to tell us what we can do in our local environment. Check it out on Thursday morning. But now, my last question for you, and it's a big question, but I want to paint a potential future of moving within our 3-dimensional world as we unfold into this 5-dimensional belief world that we are in, or 3-dimensional actions that we take. But if we close our eyes and come tomorrow, Sacha, the International Judicial Natural Justice, Tribunal of Natural Justice is the ultimate law in the world. What would be their agenda at this point after all this has been occurring? What would be their 30-day, 90-day, year plan to create natural justice moving forward? Paint that picture for us.
Fine. Thank you for asking. And I'll just repeat, stop paying taxes. So the first thing one would do is ensure that people are no longer fleeced from personal income tax. Please understand, your personal income tax equates to your time and motion. Your time and motion is your life force. Your life force is what you were born with and what you die once you've expended. So your life force should not ever be harvested into anyone's agenda. If you want lampposts and pavements, they get paid for by commercial taxes. Trust me, that's the way it works. I've studied it. Okay? So you have to step away from the fiction. The first thing to restore natural justice to the world is to understand the difference between the living and the dead. The living are living men and women of the living soil. The more connected they are to the agrarian communities out of cities, the more they are living men and women of the living soil. The more connected to godliness they are by definition and by distinction. Okay, the more agrarian, move out into the plains of Africa, Southeast Asian jungles, these spaces where the innocence of humanity still prevails. Okay, we need to disentangle ourselves from highly toxic, highly mutant city grids, which are only towers of Babel that falsely attract people's time and motion and life force into a Luciferian complex, and you end up perishing of some painful disease far too young. So step away from the false idolatry of a false reality and step back into your true purpose. Who are you? What are you? Why are you here? What is your highest dream? Move into affirmation, creative expansion. This is why we were born to this world, not to be wage slaves, pegged into artificial justice, which is statutory law. Learn the distinction between statutes and law. Law is you and I going freely across the surface of the earth, unmolested, so long as we cause no harm, loss, or injury to another living soul. Boom. One sentence. That's law. Now, that's all we need to abide by as 5, 6, 7 billion souls on earth. We do not need priests and bankers and interface merchants and agents to stand between us and our capacity to do what I've just described.
Wonderful. Now, would there be a kind of a new start with this tribunal, or would people be held accountable for their crimes against humanity in the past?
Of course, you need to absolve people from crimes where it is needful and just to do so. And there are always situations wherein that is absolutely appropriate and necessary. But in the main, with this degree of evil that has prevailed in the world, I think bringing people to justice is going to take probably a couple of years of very intensive military tribunals. And I can tell you it's going to have very little effect for people like me to be arguing natural justice. Military tribunals will hang people by the neck until dead or shoot them through the heart. And in some cases, one imagines that disposing of the evil echelon in our midst, most people would be clamoring for that kind of a result. Personally, I wouldn't. I think they should all be exiled to some ghastly island in the middle of some ghastly spot in the world and left to their own devices.
Well, beautifully stated. Now, Sacha, people want to get involved with the tribunal or get involved with what you're up to. How can they reach you and help this movement move forward? Because the accountability level and natural justice really is in line with moving into this higher frequency of living.
Thank you, Tim. We're not looking for people to join the organization per se. If anyone goes to the www.itnj.org site and signs the treaty, that will really help, because the more thousands and thousands of people around the world who are joining us and signing the treaty, that's helping to support us more and more with our voice. Look, we've got from senior police commissioners to secretaries of state to Nobel laureates to royalty. We have all sorts of powerful people connected already, high leadership. We've got the world's leading activists, as you know, people like G. Edward Griffin to Del Bigtree and a great many others who are also our commissioners. So we've got already tremendous political clout and tremendous political influence. What we need is more and more foot soldiers, people of the world, to sign the treaty, stand behind the treaty. Anyone can go online and check that out. Any advocates, lawyers, attorneys, barristers who wanted to join our team on a basis of pro bono, and well, not pro bono because there's no money in it, but if they wanted to get on board to help to inform our process of jurisprudence, that would be greatly welcomed. I will say I am no longer a trustee. I'm a trustee emeritus. I have no power. I'm the founder. I've stepped away. I do not represent the court at all. I am not on the commission. I don't have a commission. I help to moderate some of these ad hoc seatings. I help to orchestrate some of the hearings, but I am a radical, angry activist. My voice is way too radical to be able to represent the court.
Well, it's a good catharsis, if anything. Sacha, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your insight, and I want to personally thank you for all what you're doing for humanity after all these decades, and not many people dedicate their life to this, and you're a soul that's needed here more than ever before. I want to thank you, Sacha. Thank you so much. Guys, don't forget, next week, next Wednesday, on same time, 11 a.m. on the Good Intentions Show, only on the UI Media Network, we have Dr. Shiva. He's not only a doctor, but he'll be coming on our show for a full hour. He's running also for Senate in Massachusetts, and he's going to be sharing his wisdom and information, specifically what's going on with this Plandemic and what we can do to take our power back, our constitutional rights of what we could do in this world that we live in to make sure that we move forward in love and in justice. And don't forget, on Thursday, we have at Awake in Atlanta, we have our Rebel with the Cause. We have local politicians. We'll share with you what you could do in your local governments, just as Sacha Stone has been talking about, to take back legally. Hold these people accountable to make changes now before this gets too far out of control and more people have to suffer unnecessarily. So thank you, guys. If you like what you hear, check out YouTube, UI Media Network, as well as go to our Facebook at United Intentions, United Intentions Media, UI Media, and get involved. We need this movement. More people involved, the more we can move forward and get great speakers such as Sacha Stone to come on and share their truth. Sacha, thank you so much. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you very soon.
You have been listening to The Good Intentions Show on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intentions Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Be sure to log on to unitedintentions.org a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions, one intention at a time. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, live life with intent. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.